Thanks everyone, and welcome to part 3 of the Infuse Microfocus webinar series. Today we're going to be discussing the importance of test automation and continuous delivery. Taking us through the presentation today is Infuse CTO Nalin Parbhu, and I'll hand over to Nalin now to start the webinar.
Thanks, Nick. So just going into the importance of test automation and continuous delivery. So I'll just move on to the next slide and outline the objectives and aims. So really, this is just to explain to a technical and non-technical audience why test automation and continuous delivery are important in the modern software delivery lifecycle. So just before we do that, let me introduce Infuse. So Infuse is a company that's been around for 17 years. We've got 10 years plus of core credibility in enhancing and accelerating modern software delivery since our inception. And part of that really is about our faith and pride in test automation. It's a core part of our DNA. It's how we started delivering services and how we envisage it would continue. Most of my team are thought leaders and true specialists, so we contribute heavily into open source. We are objective and independent, so although we have strong relationships with the enterprise vendors, we do adopt open source and are early adopters of early innovation. We've delivered over 500 projects, and we're a company that's reasonably spread now over UK, Ireland, and India. So although we're small enough to care, we are large enough to deliver most projects. Just a little bit about me. So I'm the founder, CEO, and CTO. I started Infuse in 2002. An ex-developer that moved into testing by accident, as most people did about 20 years ago. And so I brought those development techniques into testing and found a niche in test automation and thought this would be a great idea to kind of start a company that would excel in this area and explore opportunities offered by continuous delivery and enhancing and accelerating automation. In terms of personal, I'm born in Leicester, but I live in London. And I'm married to Monica. I have 2 children, and I have a passion to help people out genuinely. In terms of hobbies, I tend to try and be funny, aspire to be a stand-up comedian in my next career, and promise never to act my age, and love it outdoor cooking. So let's just moving on to the next bit. Let's look at some of the business drivers for test automation and continuous delivery. So all businesses expect agility, cost control, and manage risks. And what they need to do is deliver products and websites and mobile applications that are quality built in, are secure, and allow the business to change often without affecting these principles. And traditional delivery approaches have not really helped that. So the key risk to their success is like having a business that's agile, but so business needs to move to new markets, has new products, it takes over new businesses, it has regulatory impacts, things like Brexit or other law changes. But there's also large failures in products that can affect customers. So you've got tangible and intangible impacts, slow delivery, reduced confidence, affect revenue. You may have read recently about a very famous airline that got fined heavily by our Information Commission for a data hack. So all these solutions where you're managing business agility and manage risk need to have some cost control. They need to be cost effective, and you need to have changes that generate additional revenue or open up additional markets as well. So as we move on from the business drivers, let's look at some of the timeline around automation and software delivery. So historically, large corporates have always used, and still do actually, use archaic delivery methodologies. The painful delivery process, they run over many years. They have long release cycles running over 3 months, 6 months yearly. And they're labor intensive. So what they've done is to reduce the cost. A lot of them have used a labor arbitrage, moved labor abroad, gone offshore, and but timelines have still been the same, and the quality has not moved. And so there's been a time for a change required, and the industry has recognised that. And there's been early adoption in the 90s, certainly when I was starting my career with extreme programming. Agile came out in early 2001. And Agile was adopted as a best practice methodology since then. And since becoming what I would call something used in small teams, it's now become enterprise ready and become integral to the process. And to make agile work, automation is absolutely necessary. And automation is adopted as a best practice. But that's in 2002, and to be honest, agile didn't really get adopted by enterprise in 2010 and 11. Now today, 17 years after I started Infuse, automation is spoken of everywhere. People that were traditional opponents of automated testing, not manual, of automated testing, are strong advocates of it, and I find some of that quite laughable when I see those same people. But but the truth is that automation reduces test times, reduces risk, eliminates human errors. It delivers better quality earlier. You can repeat it repeatedly. It brings standards, and it means less documentation. So everyone's happy. There's less paperwork. There's happier customers, happier shareholders making more money. So just exploring some of these legacy delivery issues, let's go over here. And if we look at this diagram over here, you've got development, and you've got a process that it moves on from requirements to development to integration, to functional test and fix, regression test, performance test and fix. And basically what happens is that the issues get found in UAT. It ends up going back to development, and you go through that life cycle again. So you end up going through big bang integration. You have late functional testing and rework. Your repeated regression, your performance rework, and then you have surprises in UAT. And it's a very stressful type of way of delivering, really. The amount of rework, it lacks business confidence. It lacks supply confidence. It takes a long time. Inevitably, you get attrition within the team because people are working on projects that are very stressful. And essentially, you don't get delivered very much. It takes a long time. Business value is very low. But this is the way that IT's operated for a long time, and took a long time to change, and still is changing. So really, the solution to the problem is continuous delivery and test automation, and that's really by automating as much as possible in the delivery life cycle and reducing the time for feedback loops. And the way that we do that is we have what we call automated continuous integration practices. So you may have heard of tools like Jenkins and Selenium and various frameworks that that are used to basically take out artifacts within the software delivery lifecycle and essentially run a test. So you do some development, you run a test, you promote that to the integration environment, you run some integration tests, and you run to the functional test environment, and then you fix that, and then you run those tests again. And the point around that is that if there is a gate that is automated and running, then if it fails, then you fix it within that area. And the statistics from the software research says it's basically 1/20th of the cost to fix the development than it is in the test environment. So that's the process around having automated continuous integration practices. Historically, all these tests were never automated; they were manual. So basically, tests got delivered till the end, they got tested till the end, and then basically defects leaked through all those phases into UAT, and then it had to go all the way to development. So basically, it ended up costing. So automation enables QA engineers and the business to explore the product and understand the product and investigate ways to get a better understanding of exactly what's being delivered. And by the time it gets into UAT, it's a much happier place. And therefore, the business is happier. There's time to deliver is quicker because it's automated. And actually, you're delivering, you're promoting once only when it's fixed, not promoting software that's not fixed through down the life cycle. So really, looking at that, what you're looking at is getting a pipeline that contains automated testing gates and validating build quality. The only way you can do this is through automation. You cannot do this manually. You can't have testers embedded at every phase of the team. So the only way that this will work is with test automation, cross-functional teams, developers and testers working together, ideally co-located, and communicating, right? And working long-term. And that's the whole proponent around Agile, whether it's Kanban or Squads or Scrum. So really, what should you stop doing? You definitely need to stop settling for good when way better is available. And that means adopting continuous delivery practices in an automated approach. What we should also stop doing is having the traditional project delivery view. So the way that I've seen lots of projects, and I still see them because those opportunities are what's helping drive our business, is customers have project squads. They're adopting agile, but kind of part adopted. So they have project squads or scrums, and then they hand over still to operations. And what they have is this grey haze of ownership. The project manager is just interested in getting the project out live. He doesn't care about the product. He actually doesn't probably even care about the business. He just wants to get his project out live, and he doesn't care about the quality that's being delivered. So anything that will get the project out and gives a reasonable perception of quality, they're happy with. And so an operations person picks it up, and it's a load of rubbish. And I've seen this so many times in large businesses, you know. And they pick up the product, and then you get whatever 100 P1 defects. Business blames IT because IT can't respond quick enough. The truth is, it's the project that delivered a load of rubbish, and so that needs to stop because there's no long-term planning, pure tactical, and actually projects don't act in the interest of the business. Certainly what businesses need to do is optimize test and delivery. And optimizing test and delivery doesn't mean labor arbitrage. Shifting costs offshore and having some wonderful plan where, you know, you keep all the brains on site and you get rid of all the, you know, all the commoditized work. It's not a model that works. It's not delivering better software. So, you know, what you need to do is you need to optimize test and delivery. Here's a variety of tools that are out here. You need to use integration. You need to use build tools, and you need to have automated testing, automated build, you know, automated deployment. Operations should be monitored automatically as well. What you should also start doing is also change the perspective that projects are responsible for generating the ongoing support. That means getting projects to understand that when it goes live to production, you own the problem when the production things happen. And that changes the cultural behavior of the individuals because they know that if they introduce those faults, they've got to fix it. And there's a natural inclination for people who are creators, who are normally developers, to be wanting to work on new stuff. So it's better to build it right first time so you don't need to fix it later, and then you can work on the new stuff. And that helps change that perspective. And that can be done through training. That can be done through ownership. So, you know, teams that need to work in squads of scrums that are responsible for the product from day one. They know that when a customer complains, the customer's going to come complaining directly to them. It's not going to go to the operations team and be handled through various trouble ticketing platforms as a ticket. They will own the problem. They will own the customer issue, and they'll be responsible. And full traceability and ownership of that to change that type of approach. The other thing that you should certainly start doing is start looking at the tools in the market. Short-sighted selection of tools doesn't help you get very far. So if you think that, oh, let me just try Selenium because it's free, and let me just try a Selenium training course because I saw one on Udemy and it's quite, you know, £10, and I can turn, you know, my young manual tester and automate it. It's not going to happen. It really isn't going to happen. It's not going to happen. That young manual tester or old manual tester is a manual tester for 20 years because they couldn't code in the first place. And that's true. What they do is they have an analytical mind to be able to work out finding faults, requirements, and understanding and analyzing that. And that's a great skill to have, but doesn't make them a coder. So businesses need to stop going in that direction and certainly start researching the latest tool and techniques to continuously improve. And as you can see over here, there's a wide choice of tools to choose from. And when I started Infuse, there was only about 4 logos in there, and now there's loads. There's almost one every week. Let me tell you what Infuse has done here. We've made a commitment over the last 8 years to invest into Use Mango. So we've got a functional automated test solution and framework, and it's built for technical and non-technical users. It works with web, but it also works with your package applications such as SAP, your Oracle, your Tribal Fit, and it automatically creates test scripts for ad hoc pipeline execution, and it integrates tools like Jenkins It works. It plugs into your enterprise test management tools, and there's a link down here which tells you what demo to go on, and how to trial it. And it's picking up a lot of pickup in this area, because there's a big promise from people saying, use this open source framework and use that, and this manual tester can turn into an automator. Well, what we're doing is investing in something that actually delivers that. So, use Mango. If you're a manual tester and you want to get into automation, use Mango. Could probably get you up and running in a week. Just something else about Use Mango and how does it work. So Use Mango is all about simplifying and accelerating automated testing. Automated testing is complicated. You need to build code, whatever the language is. You need to build a framework. You need to understand what happens when the test fails. What happens when you get something that doesn't turn up? How do you handle data? How do you reset the environment? How do you do config management? How many times do you run a test? It's fairly complex. So what we've done is we've built Use Mango, which is a framework and tool that enables you to leverage page object models as components, and you use them as reusable blocks for building your tests. And what we have is a scanner that enables you to scan the UI. Where there's no UI, you can then create components for example, APIs. And then you can use execution in your choice of script language. So we've built a plugin for Selenium WebDriver, but also drives things like HP UFT. But we've also driven components from JMeter, for example, for a customer. And then what you can do when you execute that is we can run that into a natural language syntax in a detailed log, which is presentable to a business, so you can do your analysis as well. And then what you can do is also use those test scripts to create guides and logs for your business. The other thing about Use Mango is that it integrates with Jenkins, so it comes with a native Jenkins plugin that's available on the Jenkins website. So you can use Mango that will enable you to set up your not your test automation, but also your continuous delivery as well. Just a little bit more on Use Mango and its integration. So I'm not going to dwell too much in terms of explaining this slide. I think you can see that it integrates with many systems in the test. It's designed for package applications and some legacy apps like SAP and Oracle. It integrates with legacy test management systems, but also things like Jira as well, and also works with things like Jenkins, and also you can do your defect tracking with all the modern tools too. Just to kind of show you a couple of sample reports. So here's a few sample reports that come out of Use Mango that are in Jenkins, and there's another one here from Jenkins as well. So here's how to build the Use Mango from the Jenkins plugin, and then towards the bottom left you've got a test report from Use Mango, which gives you a heat map of what's passed and what's failed. So really, to enable continuous delivery doesn't work without continuous testing. So test automation is the mortar between the bricks of of development and build. Without the automated test, you can't do automated deploy. So if anyone's talking to you about DevOps, CI/CD, and they're not talking about test automation, they're basically they're not delivering quality. And this is an area where we have a lot of expertise, and we can help you. So just what's up next? We've got the white paper download, DevOps Uncovered. We've got a guide to test automation, which is a collection of best practices gained over various workshops and also engagement. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to do this part. This part's me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're just going to go back to the summary, and then we'll do the questions.
Yeah, go on.
Cool. Brilliant. Right, thanks for that, Nalin, for comprehensively covering test automation and continuous delivery. We do have a few questions from the audience I've just jotted down to ask you just before we wrap things up. So the first one is continuous testing and continuous delivery the same thing?
No. So continuous testing is continuous testing enables continuous delivery. Continuous delivery is about the deployment and release of the product. and continuous testing is the piece before the delivery. So they are interlinked, because without continuous testing, you cannot have continuous delivery.
Brilliant. And the next question is, how do I know where to start in regards to test automation and continuous delivery?
So that's a really good question. So really, it depends on where you want to go on your journey. We talk to a lot of customers around how to start the journey, and we've built a capability model called the Infuse capability model, which is basically a maturity model around defining where you start on the continuous delivery journey, and that looks across your quality, it looks across your testing, and it looks across your organization in terms of helping you define what you need to set up to get continuous delivery. And so things that it will do is it will look throughout your SDLC, it will give you a maturity rating, it will give you a skills gap analysis, and then it will give you an improvement plan to get you to define your continuous delivery and continuous testing practices. And then once you do that, then you can basically use monitoring and reassessment to kind of apply continuous improvement. So that's kind of what we do. Various other companies have come up with similar-ish models, right? Which is kind of looking at, they look at the framework, that instead of doing a formal gap analysis, they do an informal gap analysis. They got various meters around how you measure those individual practices, but it's not too different. So I think the best way to start, and our capability model is available on our website for free, is that you can you download the model, you can assess yourself, but obviously if you want us to come in, we can help you do that for you as well. And depending on the size of the team, that can be done in anything between 2 to 8 weeks.
Perfect. So I guess the next question directly links to what you've just said. I mean, you might have just slightly answered it at the end, but how long does it take to implement continuous delivery?
Well, it's a long journey, right? So just the baseline of the process can take between 2 and 8 weeks, depending on the size of the journey. But that just gives you the plan on what you need to do. So to get the continuous delivery depends on the size of your organization. So to give you an idea, with one company that we're talking to, which is an e-commerce retailer, I mean, it's probably going to be a 3-year to 5-year journey to get them up to a level where they'll be happy that they're meeting what they need to do for their business. So one of the naiveties that I've seen, and I've certainly seen it with a client based in London in the Shoreditch area, is that they expect these things to be set up in 3 months, and it's just not realistic, right? You can't set up DevOps in 3 months. What you can do is you could probably set up a pilot and learn from that within 3 to 4 months. In 6 months, you might get your first pilot matured, but you're not going to set up. And if you've got a continuous delivery team of maybe 10 to 12 engineers, you could say that you're on the first phase of defining your continuous delivery. But the problem is that a lot of people don't know how to manage their businesses, right? So businesses don't understand IT. And to be honest, a lot of IT leaders don't understand IT as well. So they make promises that are not realistic. And that's the reality of the world that we live in. And unfortunately, I come across this all the time. So yeah, it's a bit of a how long is a piece of string question. But I would say 2 to 8 weeks to baseline your process and get a process improvement roadmap. And then a further 6 months to kind of get your initial defined processes. And then off the back of that, it depends on how many scrums or squads you want to stand up. Say how long it is.
Brilliant, thanks, Nalin. Just moving back towards test automation, could you sort of talk about some of the key challenges of implementing TA?
Yeah, so one of the key challenges that I always see around test automation is everyone says just get a tool and take some training, right? And a lot of test managers are seduced by that, right? It's get in the Ferrari and take 3 days of lessons and to Formula One, right? That's kind of what it feels like. So to set up test automation, a lot of the customers that I speak to have traditionally had manual testing practices. So they say to me, hey, my UAT takes too long, or my regression testing takes too long, or just my testing takes too long. And when you talk to these customers, inevitably it's about late phase testing. So it's either end-to-end testing in the system integration test environment, or it could be UAT type testing, or even could be just the acceptance testing is taking too long. And the reason why it takes too long is because they've got further issues up the life cycle. So, they may have monolithic code bases, so they have to release a few systems. If you go back to the diagram that I said earlier around using traditional approaches of delivery, they haven't done testing through the life cycle, done minimum testing, and therefore a lot of defects have reached into the UAT environment. Another thing is that a lot of customers have technical debt. They don't have any unit tests. So therefore unit tests have, without unit testing, that means lots of defects leak through. So people go to me, oh yeah, I want to implement test automation. The important thing is what do you want to transform? If you just want to reduce your regression testing, that's not the maximum bang for your bucket. The opportunity that's offered to you by automation now is you can build that automation and you can run it. For example, if I have acceptance testing and I'm automating that, then why do I only need to run that in my acceptance test environment? I can now run that further left. I can maybe give some of that to my developers and run that in the integration environment. I can run that in the dev environment. And then what you can do is use those tests to improve the quality by shifting those tests further up the chain, because they're automated. You built them. So now you can use them in the way that should be automated. So the biggest challenge that I see around test automation is people just want to automate what they're doing. And that's not easy because of the reasons that I've just said. Other technical reasons is when you do manual testing, you know what tests you want to run, you know what data needs to be set up. So you basically do that as part of your manual test. So for example, if you know that there's a certain customer whose balance is always negative, if you're a UAT tester, you kind of know I go into that customer and their balance is always negative, and I'll always be able to run those tests with negative balance. When you have an automated test, it's not going to have that intelligence. So you have to find that data. If you can't find that data, you have to make that data. Then you have to make sure that once you use that data, is the data set back in the state that it was before, so you can rerun that test again. And then you have to make sure when you run automated tests is that the build of the software you've received in that environment is actually set up to receive automation, because obviously if it's buggy software, then your automated tests won't work. So setting up test automation is a journey. And, I don't want to harp back, but, we have a process improvement model called ICM that enables you to define that journey, which enables you to look at your practices up the life cycle and through the chain to optimize the investment from test automation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that was a fantastic answer. Just leading on from that, are there any test cases that can't be automated?
Yeah, so I think IT is such that you can probably automate anything, but there's some general principles around automation. So the idea is to automate the simplest test first, which is why people talk about unit testing and then automating tests. What you should be doing is looking to automate tests that are repeatable, that are easy, that where the tasks are repetitive, where the steps are easy to do. What you don't want to do is automate tests that have, for example, time travel. Because if you're running an automated test, then let's say, for example, you have a test case that will renew a policy. Probably not a very good one, but say, for example, you have a test that needs time travel. There's something to do with pensions or something like that. If you have an application like that, if you have a time travel test where a test needs to wait for a number of days, probably best not to automate that. Where you have a test that requires a workflow, where you got a dependency on another system, where you do something and you're waiting for a third-party system for it to respond to it, to leave it in a certain state, probably best not to automate that. You probably automate some of the steps, but then the validation steps need to be done. So we have a test case selection matrix that enables you to work this out and enable you to identify what tests you should automate and which ones you don't automate. And again, it's one of the things that that we can make available for free off our website.
Brilliant, thanks Nalin. I think that's all the time we have for questions today. Apologies if we didn't get a chance to answer your question. We'll reach out to you individually at the end of the webinar. Thanks everyone for attending. As always, we have some more information around the topic discussed today. So we have 2 white papers. The first is DevOps Uncovered. This is where we have experts from a number of different industries as they try to answer the question, what is DevOps? For those of you looking to pursue test automation right now, we do have a comprehensive 22-page guide that will help you overcome some of the key challenges. And as Nalin mentioned before, we actually have a demo video of Use Mango, which is our very own functional test automation tool. If you do like the demo, or if you are just interested off the back of the webinar, there is another link which will put you in contact with one of our client relationship managers, and they can help you get set up with a live demo for yourself. And finally, we do have a trial of Micro Focus's ALM Octane solution. This is a comprehensive lifecycle management platform for high quality application delivery. Thanks again, everyone. Coming up next in the series, we have Nigel Summers, who is the former test manager at Bristol University, and he'll be presenting on how to deliver essential business benefits through test automation. So keep your eyes peeled for that one.